The world celebrates the ones who never stop moving, the early risers, the late sleepers, the constant grinders who treat rest as weakness. Every book, every ad, every story seems to whisper the same command: hustle harder or be left behind. But if this is true, why do so many who run the fastest collapse the earliest? Why do the ones who appear still, quiet, calm, almost unmoved, often last the longest? There is a strange paradox hidden in plain sight. What if stillness, not speed, is the real key to strength? And what if the Stoics knew this all along? Hustle culture is everywhere. It lives in the slogans that tell us to grind until we can't, to sleep when we're dead, to measure our worth by how much we produce. In cities built on ambition, like New York or Silicon Valley, being busy is worn as a badge of honor. People boast about working 80-hour weeks, sacrificing meals, and treating exhaustion as proof of greatness. Yet beneath this shine lies a quiet emptiness. Busyness does not always equal progress. Often it is noise without direction, motion without meaning. The Stoics saw this centuries ago. They warned that constant activity can distract us from the one thing that truly matters: living well. Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire, wrote in his journal not about conquests or wealth, but about mastering his own mind. He knew the value of pausing, reflecting, and resisting the pull of endless demands. Today, hustle culture magnifies external rewards, money, titles, recognition, while neglecting the inner life. We become so busy chasing more that we rarely ask why we want it. Like a person running in circles, we confuse speed with progress, and in the rush, we lose sight of peace, virtue, and clarity. To the Stoic, the frantic rush of modern life would look like a kind of slavery to desire, to fear, to what others think. The noise is celebrated, but it often masks insecurity. Hustle culture thrives on showing off effort, but the question remains, what is it all leading toward? Without a purpose deeper than motion, all the hustle in the world leaves us standing still. Stoicism begins with a simple but radical idea, that our peace depends not on what happens around us, but on how we choose to respond. It teaches that life is unpredictable, often harsh, and rarely under our full control, but our thoughts, our actions, and our character, these belong to us. This philosophy, born in ancient Greece and matured in Rome, was not meant for lecture halls alone. It was tested in the lives of people who faced hardship daily. Epictetus was born a slave, crippled, and yet he spoke of freedom as something found within, not granted by others. Seneca was one of the wealthiest men of his time, surrounded by luxury and political danger, yet he wrote about the emptiness of possessions and the shortness of life. Marcus Aurelius carried the weight of ruling an empire, fighting wars and losing children, but in the quiet of night he reminded himself that nothing, not power, not fame, was worth losing his soul. For the Stoic, stillness is not doing nothing. It is clarity, a deliberate pause before acting, a discipline of the mind that cuts through chaos. Where hustle measures success in quantity of tasks, Stoicism measures it in quality of virtue. Did you act with justice, courage, self-control, and wisdom today? If yes, then you lived well, regardless of the world's judgment. This is why Stoicism endures. It shifts the focus from chasing external victories to mastering the self. And mastery of the self is the only victory that cannot be stolen by circumstance. While cultures glorify endless striving, Stoicism quietly insists that true power comes from within. The chase for constant motion gives the appearance of progress, but often it is an illusion. We live in a world that rewards speed, yet speed can disguise the fact that we are running in place. Think of a treadmill. Your legs pump, your heart races, sweat pours down, but the scenery never changes. Many people live like this, mistaking exhaustion for achievement. The Stoics warned against this trap. They argued that activity without purpose is wasted life, and busyness without direction is no different from idleness. When we hustle without reflection, we risk becoming servants to momentum itself. The need to always be moving forward can come not from vision, but from fear. Fear of falling behind, fear of appearing lazy, fear of not being enough. This kind of movement doesn't free us, it chains us to anxiety. Seneca wrote that people are frugal with their money but reckless with their time. They guard their possessions, but they scatter their hours as if life were infinite. Endless motion steals time we never get back. We chase goals because others chase them. We take on more because everyone else does. The result is a culture that glorifies motion but forgets meaning. Progress isn't found in how much we do, but in whether what we do is aligned with reason and virtue. True advancement is not measured by speed, but by direction. Without clarity, running faster only carries us further from where we truly wish to go. The question is not, how much can I do, but why am I doing it at all? Stillness, in the Stoic sense, is not weakness or retreat. It is the deliberate choice to remain steady when everything around you demands urgency. To be still is not to abandon effort, but to direct it with purpose. Imagine a seasoned sailor in a storm. The inexperienced crew panics, pulling at ropes, shouting and rushing about. The captain, however, stands calm at the helm, adjusting the sails with measured precision. His stillness is not inaction, it is mastery of action. The Stoics believed that such calm strength allows us to see more clearly. When the mind is not clouded by restlessness, decisions are sharper. Reaction gives way to reason. This is why Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to be like a rock against which the waves crash. The waves roar and foam, yet the rock remains unmoved. Stillness is the source of that resilience. In modern life, we often confuse restlessness with productivity. We feel guilty when we are not busy, as if slowing down means falling behind. But stillness is not laziness. It is the pause that makes action meaningful. Just as a musician knows that silence between notes gives the melody power, the Stoic knows that stillness gives life direction. By refusing to be swept away by noise, we gain the strength to act with intention. It is not the frantic who endure, but those who anchor themselves in calm. True strength is not found in the frenzy of movement, but in the ability to remain steady while the world races past. Cultures do not glorify hustle by accident. The roots run deep in history, shaped by survival, economics, and identity. In places where survival once depended on long hours in fields or factories, hard work became a moral duty. Industrial revolutions taught entire societies that progress meant producing more, faster, and cheaper. Over time, this ethic turned into a story passed down through generations. To be worthy, one must always be busy. The farmer working from dawn to dusk, the laborer in the mill, the entrepreneur burning midnight oil, these became symbols of honor. In capitalist economies, hustle evolved into something even larger. It became not just a necessity, but a cultural myth. Success stories of people who worked harder than anyone else are celebrated as proof that effort alone guarantees wealth. Advertisements, movies, and even schools reinforce this message. The one who hustles wins. The one who rests falls behind. Busyness became status. To say I'm busy signals importance, while to say I have time is mistaken for weakness. Yet not every culture has embraced this to the same degree. Some societies, especially those influenced by older traditions of balance, honor the value of rest, ritual, and community over constant striving. They measure success not in endless work, but in harmony and well-being. Still, in a global world where ambition spreads quickly, the glorification of hustle often overshadows other values. We live in a time when to pause is to risk being misunderstood, where stillness can seem like rebellion. This is why the Stoic way, calm, deliberate, detached from the frenzy, feels so countercultural. It dares to question whether the race is worth running at all. Stoicism stands as a quiet rebellion against the endless demands of hustle. While the world says, do more, earn more, prove more, the Stoic voice asks, is it necessary? This simple question cuts through noise like a blade. In a culture addicted to speed, Stoicism's insistence on stillness feels radical. It refuses to measure a life by wealth, titles, or reputation. Instead, it asks whether you lived with virtue, whether your actions aligned with reason, whether your soul remained unshaken. This is why Stoicism has found new life in the modern world. Athletes use it to handle pressure without being crushed by it. CEOs and entrepreneurs turn to it not to chase more hours, but to manage stress and stay centered. Soldiers and leaders read its words to steady themselves in chaos. What once guided emperors now guides ordinary people navigating daily challenges. Its timelessness lies in its practicality. Unlike hustle, which leaves us exhausted, Stoicism frees us. It does not deny ambition, but anchors it. It does not oppose effort, but gives it focus. A Stoic may rise early, work hard, and build much, but not because culture demands it, only because reason shows it to be right. And when the work is done, the Stoic does not cling to outcomes. Success and failure are treated alike, both outside ultimate control. In this way, Stoicism dissolves the tyranny of busyness. It teaches that real power is the ability to act when needed and remain still when not. It is not the pace of life that defines us, but the depth with which we live it. Hustle often delivers rewards that shine brightly at first, but fade quickly. A promotion, a paycheck, a public recognition. These are treated as victories, yet they rarely satisfy for long. The more we chase, the more the goalposts move. What once seemed enough becomes too little, and the cycle begins again. Hustle promises fulfillment, but often leaves emptiness in its wake. The Stoics saw this clearly. They warned that external rewards are fleeting, while the inner life is enduring. Seneca reminded us that riches, fame, and power can vanish overnight, but character remains. The short-term costs of hustle are visible: burnout, exhaustion, broken health. But the deeper cost is harder to measure. Relationships weaken when we are always too busy. Moments of beauty are missed because we are already thinking of the next task. Even our sense of identity becomes tied to productivity, leaving us hollow when the work stops. To live this way is to gamble our soul for temporary gains. Stoicism flips the question of reward. Instead of asking, "What did I gain?" it asks, "Who did I become?" A person who lives with courage, justice, self-control, and wisdom has already won, regardless of wealth or status. True success cannot be taken away because it is not built on fragile circumstances. Hustle may fill your pockets, but Stoicism fills your spirit. One builds towers of sand, easily washed away by the tide. The other builds foundations of stone, standing firm through every storm. The problem with hustle's rewards is not only that they fade, but that they distract us from the only reward that lasts: a virtuous life. Practicing stillness sounds simple, but it is one of the hardest things to do in a world that glorifies motion. The moment we pause, we feel a subtle unease. Guilt creeps in, whispering that rest is laziness. Fear follows, warning that others are moving ahead while we stand still. Even when our body is at rest, our mind often races, replaying tasks undone and futures uncertain. This is the challenge of stillness. It confronts the restless part of ourselves that seeks validation in activity. The Stoics knew this struggle well. They did not promise that calm would come easily. They understood that the human mind is quick to wander, to chase after desire or recoil from fear. That is why they treated stillness as a discipline, not a natural gift. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself again and again, reminding his restless thoughts to return to what is within his control. Epictetus urged his students to train their attention as a soldier trains for battle, so that when distractions appear, they do not overthrow the mind. For us today, the challenge is multiplied by constant noise, phones, screens, demands for attention. Every distraction is an invitation to abandon stillness and rejoin the race. To resist requires courage. But Stoicism offers a different standard. Instead of asking, "Am I keeping up with others?" it asks, "Am I governing myself?" The shift is subtle but powerful. When we measure by others, we are enslaved by their pace. When we measure by virtue, stillness becomes strength. The difficulty of practicing stillness is real, but so too is the reward: freedom from being ruled by the noise of the world. The lessons of Stoicism are not just ideas written in books. They are lives lived under pressure, each a story of stillness tested in fire. Take Seneca, a man of wealth and power, yet also a man who knew life's fragility. In his writings, he spoke of how time slips through our fingers while we busy ourselves with trivialities. He reminded his readers that life is not short, but we make it so by wasting it. His words were not theory, they were written while navigating the dangers of Roman politics, where one wrong move could mean death. Then there is Epictetus, born into slavery, his body broken by cruelty, yet his spirit unshaken. He taught that freedom is not granted by chains removed, but by mastering one's own will. Even in a position of weakness, he discovered strength through discipline. His stillness was not passive, it was the courage to endure without losing himself. Marcus Aurelius offers perhaps the clearest example of Stoic stillness. As emperor, he commanded armies and ruled a vast empire, yet his private writings reveal a man constantly reminding himself to stay humble, patient, and calm. In the midst of wars and plagues, he paused to write about virtue, about the brevity of life, about staying anchored while the world crumbled. His journal was not written for others, but for himself, a quiet dialogue to keep his soul steady. These stories show us that Stoic stillness is not born in comfort. It is tested in hardship, in loss, in pressure. The men who practiced it did not escape life's storms, they faced them fully and stood firm. Their example is proof that stillness is not escape from life, but the strength to live it well. Hustle culture urges us to say yes to everything, every opportunity, every request, every chance to prove ourselves. The result is a life crammed with commitments, often leaving us scattered and drained. To the Stoics, this kind of living is the opposite of wisdom. They taught that true strength lies not in endless acceptance, but in discerning refusal. Saying no is not weakness, it is clarity. Each no protects time, focus, and energy for what truly matters. Seneca warned against being everywhere and nowhere, consumed by countless tasks but grounded in none. He argued that spreading ourselves too thin leaves us living superficially, never fully present. In contrast, the Stoic approach is deliberate. To say no is to choose a narrower path, but one walked with depth. It means asking, does this align with virtue, or is it noise? Does it serve the growth of the soul, or does it only satisfy vanity? In modern life, this lesson is more urgent than ever. We are surrounded by invitations to hustle, side projects, extra hours, social obligations, endless scrolling that feels like productivity but drains the spirit. The temptation is constant, yet so is the cost. By learning to say no, we reclaim the rarest resource: attention. When we refuse what is trivial, we create space for what is essential. Stillness is born from this discipline. Every no is an act of self-control, a defense against the chaos of demands. The person who can say no wisely is not less successful, but more free. They are no longer pulled in every direction, but rooted in what truly endures. Stillness may sound like a distant ideal, but it has a place in ordinary life. It begins not with grand gestures, but with simple practices that anchor the mind. A quiet morning before the world intrudes, spent in reflection or journaling, can set the tone for the day. Marcus Aurelius did this daily, writing reminders to himself about patience, humility, and reason. We can do the same, even with just a few lines. This act is not about perfection, but about centering ourselves before the noise begins. Stillness can also be found in how we work. Instead of scattering our attention across countless tasks, we can choose to focus on one thing fully, then release it. The Stoics valued directed effort, not frantic multitasking. By giving ourselves wholly to the task at hand and then letting it go, we resist the endless pull of busyness. Even something as simple as turning off distractions while we work becomes an act of Stoic discipline. In family and relationships, stillness shows itself as presence. Listening without rushing to reply, being fully with someone instead of half elsewhere in thought. These are ways of living stoically. They remind us that life is measured not in the number of things we do, but in the depth with which we live them. Stillness does not demand that we leave the world. It asks us to meet the world differently, to pause where others rush, to reflect where others react, to remain steady where others break. In this way, stillness becomes not withdrawal, but strength in the midst of ordinary days. It is a discipline anyone can practice, no matter how busy the world becomes. When we compare hustle to stillness over time, the difference becomes clear. Hustle burns brightly at first. It pushes people into rapid motion, sometimes producing quick wins and visible success. But just as a fire fed by too much fuel consumes itself, hustle eventually collapses under its own weight. Exhaustion, disillusionment, and burnout follow. What looks powerful in the moment often proves fragile in the long run. Stillness, by contrast, is steady. It is the flame that does not flare wildly, but endures. The Stoics knew that life was not a sprint, but a series of tests spread across years. Those who live with calm intention preserve their strength, conserving it for when it matters most. Like an oil lamp that glows through the night, stillness sustains where hustle fades. It allows a person to face setbacks without breaking, to endure hardship without despair. We see this pattern in history and in daily life. Empires rise on relentless expansion, only to collapse when they stretch themselves too thin. Companies surge on hustle-driven growth, only to fall apart when energy runs dry. But those who move with discipline, patience, and restraint often last. The Stoic path is not about speed, but endurance. It is about being unshaken while others exhaust themselves in constant motion. This is the hidden advantage of stillness. It builds resilience quietly, without spectacle. It may not dazzle in the short term, but it carries a person through storms that hustle cannot survive. Where hustle culture burns out its champions, Stoic stillness leaves its practitioners standing, calm, unbroken, and ready for what comes next. The quiet victory of Stoicism lies in what it conquers unseen. Hustle may win applause, but stillness wins mastery of the self. A person consumed by endless motion can achieve much, but if their mind is restless, they remain a servant to desire and fear. The Stoic, by holding still, gains a different kind of triumph. They rule their own heart. They are not pushed by every demand, not shaken by every failure, not inflated by every success. This is victory over the inner world, a battle greater than any conquest outside. Marcus Aurelius spoke often of this inner strength. He reminded himself that true power is to be unshaken by fortune, to meet insult with calm, and to act with reason instead of impulse. Such victories are invisible to others, yet they endure when external rewards vanish. Hustle may fill a calendar, but stillness fills the soul. Think of the contrast in simple images. Hustle is like a storm, powerful but destructive, burning itself out in noise. Stillness is like a mountain, quiet yet immovable, its strength not loud but lasting. The storm may seem more impressive, but it is the mountain that endures. The climax of the Stoic way is this realization. The greatest success is not to have more, but to need less. Not to be praised, but to be unshaken. Hustle may conquer the marketplace or the spotlight, but stillness conquers the one enemy that never leaves, our own restless mind. In that victory lies a freedom no culture of hustle can offer. The contrast between hustle and stillness is sharp, but the lesson is simple. Hustle culture builds on the belief that more effort, more motion, more noise leads to a greater life. It glorifies speed and measures worth in activity. Yet it often leaves people drained, chasing goals that vanish as soon as they are reached. The Stoics looked at life differently. They taught that the measure of a person is not in how much they do, but in how well they live. Stillness is not about withdrawing from life, but about living with clarity and depth. We have seen how hustle rewards us in the short term, but takes from us in the long term. It promises fulfillment, yet often delivers emptiness. Stillness, on the other hand, cultivates resilience, direction, and peace. It is the steady flame that endures storms. It is the discipline of saying no when needed, the courage to pause when others rush, the wisdom to focus only on what truly matters. The great Stoics lived this truth under pressure far greater than most of us will ever face, and their words still guide us today. To live stoically is not to abandon ambition, but to purify it. It is to pursue goals with reason, not frenzy, to act with virtue, not vanity. Stillness is not the absence of action, but the mastery of it. Hustle may win for a moment, but stillness wins for a lifetime. When the noise fades, when the speed slows, when the world shifts, it is the calm soul that stands firm. And in the end, that is the truest victory. If this message spoke to you, stay with us and discover more timeless wisdom in the next video.